Well, we just watched Try That in a Small Town because everyone is up in arms about it. So I guess I'll just read a couple little quick pointers and then let's chat about it.
Okay. That's my first time watching the music video.
Same. And I am so offended.
And hearing the whole song in its entirety.
True. So here we go. Headlines. How Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town became a political controversy. So CMT will no longer air the video, saying that the critics say it contained lyrics that are glorified gun violence and conveyed traditionally racist ideas. When Aldean says it's just an unspoken rule for those raised in a small town, we have each other's backs and we look out for each other. I guess the main thing is everyone says it's racist and he's pro-lynching apparently because of that video and the song. He uses words in the song like sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light. So yeah, I guess, what are your thoughts? Because the woke mob thinks it's gone too far apparently.
You want my initial thought while I was listening to you read that?
Initial go.
I'm from a small town, and that music video did not offend me. But again, I'm only seeing it from my perspective as somebody from a small town. But we were raised that way. Like, you don't come in and, like, we all take care of each other, whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, green, purple, identify as a rock. I don't care what it is. We're going to take care of our community. And there's nothing about it being a race. I
don't know about taking care of the green and purple people, though. That's a little too far.
You never know.
Let them get their shit kicked
But
in.
either way, it's about community and taking care of each other. And if your store is getting mobbed, no matter what the color of your skin is, the community's going to step in and help you.
Yeah.
When Nashville had those floods, you didn't hear about people like going to the government for help. Everyone stepped in and helped each other rebuild. It's just what we do in smaller towns. And so for the outside world to make assumptions about what that means, kind of step into a small town and really understand it. But honestly, I also, not to get too political here, even though you're bringing up a political situation, it feels like,
well, it's a cultural situation, but it's 2023, so everything in culture is political somehow now.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. I can understand how people could interpret it as a racism thing if that's their perspective of looking at it, but when I look at it, I don't see it as a racist thing. So it feels to me like the government, whoever, they don't want to empower small towns. They want you to sit back and let people just take over your cities, and they want to reduce your empowerment of a human being. And they don't want you to, when I was watching it, I had so many thoughts come up. What happened to Toby Keith during 9/11 when he made that video, "We'll put a boot in your ass"? Everyone was like, hell yeah, America, hell yeah, fuck yeah. And now they make something like this where we're still standing up as Americans and they're like, no, you can't do that, you're racist. What about putting a boot in your ass and going after the Afghanis? That was racist. Where was CMT for that? Now it's okay. It's not okay then, but it's okay here.
Terrorists, but he didn't say a strict.
But he didn't mention. But Aldean didn't mention anything about a race. Yeah. Nothing.
Then we were all we had a common enemy because it was a foreigner that we were afraid of and we were feared because we didn't know them. This is Americans doing it to Americans.
We have common enemies. Our common enemy. So
now everybody picks a side, or things are so good in the world that you look for something wrong. So CMT was like they were taking after all their critics because they're like, okay, we have to do something, because half of the people are offended by it because they just don't like the small town rural thing. You know, they called it racist because there's more people of color maybe in the city, and that's where it's happening.
Okay. And I understand why we had the riots and the looting originally. And that was for a cause that I think a lot of people really felt strongly about, for the George Floyd.
Which still...
Sure.
Tear down a mom and pop's shop.
But I think, and we can only speak from our perspective. We're white people. You know, if you were a black guy.
But there were many black owners whose businesses were ruined and they never recovered.
Yes, I understand. But I can also understand the perspective that if you are at your max and you don't know what to do and you've tried everything, and these guys are getting off, these like police officers are getting off for sticking their feet and their bodies into a young man's face. Like, I understand why they got into the streets and they started rebelling. I understand that. So I'm not ever saying anything that I disagree.
Yeah.
It may not be the way I would have handled it, but also, again, you know, we're privileged, so it's hard to give that perspective.
Well, also you could say that the media kept gaslighting to push that be angry, get to the streets, go, 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 burn down.
Yeah, it was encouraged.
It's very encouraged.
Yeah, and of course, like, look, some people who aren't in better off situations are going to go in and steal some stuff. Like, whatever. It's a product of your environment.
Yes.
So
very true.
But to stay on topic, do I feel like that video was racist? No, I think he's just saying, don't come in small towns and try to tear up our cities that we have spent a lot of time and blood, sweat, and tears building. Like, don't come here and pull that shit.
And a lot of it's not even, first of all, racial stuff aside.
Sorry.
Nothing racial, because he's talking about don't burn down stores and carjack an old lady red light. Don't randomly punch someone in the face in the street and think it's funny. Mm-hmm. He also has a line like, I've got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're going to round up. Well, that shit might fly in the city. Good luck. Try that in a small town. What does that have to do with race?
Yeah, nothing.
But he's pushing gun violence is now what the critics would say in that line.
They're saying that's pushing gun violence, but
promoting
isn't the whole
gun
point
violence.
of the riots and stuff gun violence? Aren't we kind of fighting the same thing here? You know, like,
Well, he's promoting gun violence.
yeah.
Is what they say.
I think it feels like he's empowering the people, and they want to empower whoever they are. Want to empower whatever it is they're trying to empower. It's just it's a conflict of interest, and so no matter what you do these days, the media is gonna create a buzz and make you seem like you're something that you're not.
Yeah.
Now, CMT, how's that affecting them? Have they noticed a decrease in sales?
Yeah,
Is
Luke Bryan and Blake Shelton pulled some of their songs or some of their videos from CMT after they said that they were going to pull his video down.
Yeah. I don't think his video is inappropriate. I liked it. I think it's a great song. He has a good message. Like, stand up. Don't, fight for what you believe in. Protect your community. I feel like that's something everybody can get behind.
Yeah. But
And if you don't, let that shit come to your front door and then tell me how you feel.
it changes perspective.
Sure does.
We know people, I've seen them roll their eyes when they heard that song in the distance because they don't know the song or the video. Meanwhile, they live in a small town that would do the same thing that it says.
Yeah.
But because they're in the propaganda of watching those media mainstream, videos.
So I have a devil's advocate question for you.
Go ahead.
What about some of the communities where they are protecting their community, and it may be like illegal, like say in Compton, you're protecting your community against the cops.
Are they protecting their community against cops?
I don't know. We don't know.
And how do you ask
Maybe
the question?
sometimes. I'm trying to think of the question. It came when you were saying something about it. So on the flip side, there are situations where people do try to protect and stick up for each other, and the government wins. For instance, cops maybe, and
I didn't say the
black
government.
fluent.
I'm not pro-government, so that's where.
Yeah. But then in that case, it's like they're punished for that, but yet we're punished for protecting our communities. It's interesting, really.
The government has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about the facade of the media pushing which side they want to look good or victimized. And when it comes to a small town protecting itself, it's bad. When it comes to a major city getting burned down, it's good for some reason. Like they're willing to promote that.
Are they promoting it or they're just showing it?
What's the difference? If you're getting hits and making money off of it.
Were they ever showing like, you guys need to go out and do this, or were they just showing this is what's happening and it was encouraging other people to go out and do it?
There was a lot of encouragement from AOC and I forget her name, Representative Waters. They'd be in the street saying, take to the street, burn it all down.
But that's not most of the media. That's just a few things, right?
Yeah, but those are highly elected officials that are on the CNNs of the world.
There's always an agenda.
That's what I mean.
To divide and conquer. Divide. Whatever you look at, whenever you watch the media, it's my side versus your side. It's my way versus your way. It's right versus wrong. It's a division. And if people can't see that the media is doing that and it's creating an emotional response where we're supposed to be like, I want to say this or protect this, or I'm right, you're wrong. It's constantly dividing. And I'm so over that. Like, who cares? If you think a certain way and I don't agree with you, which we've had many a times that happens, I'm not going to not love you. I'm not going to not want to be your friend because of it. We just see the world differently. But I can respect you and appreciate you for that. Just like hopefully you can see and appreciate and respect me, even if you're like, oh, you're crazy. But it's okay to be different. It's okay to not agree on stuff. It's okay to want to do whatever you want to do. But to create nonsense out of something that is not a situation, again, my perspective, I don't see it the way that other people do. I see Jason Aldean's perspective because I grew up in a small town. I can understand what he's saying. From the outside looking in, I don't know. I don't know what I'd have to talk to somebody and try to understand where they're coming from, who sees it as racist. And maybe that would be a conversation, but you and I are on the same page. So for us to talk about this.
But we've lived in major cities
Yeah.
for the last almost 2 decades of our lives. So we kind of have both perspectives a little bit because we've seen the marches and walks and riots start, but it's like, I don't see it as a racial thing whatsoever.
No.
I think that it happens maybe in more minority communities or a big city because you shove a bunch of group of people together that are all indoctrinated by the exact same mass media psychosis, and therefore they all take to the streets together. And then down the street is all the CNNs and Foxes, and they get to film it and then push it.
I think there in the past, what a riot or a protest was is not what it is today. And so I think, again, speaking as clearly as I can try to understand, the riots and the protesting doesn't really work in today's day and age the way that it did maybe in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so people now have to make you have to make it a big eruption so that you can get your point across. So I think that's why the looting and the destruction, you have to make it so much bigger to get attention. Just going in and picketing and down the street and being like, I'm protesting, it's not going to make a stink the way it used to. And
But also, is it doing anything or is it just a distraction? Because now you are being used as that, subject in the street. Like the climate activists in France were gluing their hands to the concrete and blocking the road. And then what happens now? They're screaming in pain because they have to have city workers come out and rip their hands off the ground. They're like scraping them under.
So what do you suggest then? If that's not the appropriate way to go about something, how would you approach something if you wanted to get your point across or you wanted to be heard? Sorry.
It's all complete BS.
Okay.
The whole system is rigged. If they're going to do something, they're going to do something. Political movements go by who has the money. So it's the lining of the pockets, the relationships. What have you done for me lately?
Okay.
It's all handshake deals.
So all of that. So if you weren't to be in a political arena, how would you approach? What would you do to get your voice heard if you didn't have the opportunity to be in a political seat?
Move off grid and protect your own. That goes right back to Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Small Town. All those people do what they have to do, and they will homestead, they will homeschool, they will do everything away from government and the indoctrination of what the government wants you to do and wants you to learn. So
what if people don't feel like going off grid is an opportunity for them, or they don't have the means to do that? Or what if they just can't? What if they
vote?
You think
get the right people in office?
Do you feel like voting is really going to make the change?
I personally think the whole game's rigged. So
Okay.
I don't think you can physically do anything unless you're a domestic terrorist willing to blow something up, and then you're going to prison because you're a terrible person. So it's a catch-22. I don't know the final answer to that other than we're stuck in a bubble controlled by elites and pedophiles, and we got to figure out how to get rid of them.
So I think what happens is people get that same feeling you do. It's a helplessness. And so they don't know what to do. They're not going to run for office. Their vote probably doesn't count where they are, or they're not feeling like it's enough. They're not able to leave and go off grid. So how can they feel like they're being heard with this built up emotion of anger and frustration and what am I going to do?
But I'm
going to go out and attack and hurt other people.
A lot of that built up emotion and frustration is because it's in their personal life. They're focusing on that media and things going on in the world, whether or not it's actually happening or people are starting rumors or just showing a 1% of the actual problem. Their life is probably miserable. They're probably eating crap. They don't work out. They're living in a city on top of other people, and they're so miserable that they get in these little groups and just.
I may have to disagree with you on that.
People's happiness starts inside their own personal bubble. People would rather judge the world than take care of themselves.
Okay, I agree with.
And that's where I think most of the world's problem happens with anxiety, depression. They're focused on the outside world instead of internally.
Okay, yes, there's truth to that.
So that's where my solution starts with when someone has built up emotion and frustration. Go work out. Go get some sunlight. You're probably deficient in a bunch of vitamins and minerals.
But what if you're not in a position to do that, is what I'm saying.
You are in a position to do that.
So,
Everyone
okay,
is.
example.
But you might not have the education to realize you are.
Okay, so there's a suppression of certain communities. So for instance, what I was thinking when you were saying it all starts internal, but have you ever gone to jury duty in Los Angeles So
No,
it's
I've
been
gotten out of
selected.
it like 7 times.
You're a troll. Okay. When I go to jury duty and they select everybody and you're up on the stands and they're talking, they ask you about every single person that has been selected for jury has an experience with some death in their community from a cop or from something like something that was not a fair situation to them. Now I get you can control what you can control. It's all internal. But what do you do? Like if your dad was shot down in the streets and then your mom was going to Taco Bell and she got mugged I mean, obviously none of those things would ever happen because your mom would never eat Taco Bell. But I'm just saying,
Yeah, of course.
it's easy to say it's internal, but what if something external is influencing your
So
internal?
you're changing everything. You went from like climate activist to now you're getting mugged, and now try that in a small town.
But I'm giving an example of people who don't have the opportunity. And your solution, your example when I was suggesting was it starts on the inside. Yes, I agree. But there are external forces that do affect your internal feelings.
So here's the problem.
So
We're
what would you do?
generalizing. You're generalizing overall. So the first question was just about what do you do with this emotional issue you have? Then you brought it down to groups of people in situations. Do I think everyone should have equal opportunity in this world? Yes. It's not realistic. Equal outcome will never be real because not everyone works as hard as each other. We have a major issue with communities in America that are underprivileged and have a very bad starting spot. We were lucky because we had good parents that put us in a position to at least have a start in this world where we can be successful. Not everyone has that, which is terrible. We'd rather spend 150 billion and send to other countries than send it to places like Baltimore and Detroit. So when it comes to that, it still circles right back to the government misusing our money, our resources, and I think that we need to bring it back to actually helping the people in our communities, which we're leaving hung out to dry. And you see that with homeless everywhere.
I agree with you. I agree with all that. My question though is, what's the solution? What would you?
I
What
told
would
you
you?
the solution.
But not if you can't do a political situation, you can't vote, or you can vote but you don't feel like you're being heard. What would you do? And you're saying go inward. Yes, I agree with you on a spiritual level of that. 1,000%.
That was my answer to your first group
Yes,
of
but
questions.
what's
But
the
now that you're
solution?
going into groups, that was my second.
Okay, so what's the solution? What would you suggest that somebody
I don't have a certain
Right.
solution. I could just say do your best. I don't know how to fix the giant corruption that is the U.S. government.
But do you understand why people go to looting and to rioting and to
I
protesting?
personally, I want to say I don't understand. I know why they do, but I don't understand because I'll never be that person that's like, I'm going to go bomb that building or burn down the towers or whatever. Like, I'm not that person. I'm not going to break someone's windows. And I don't know if that becomes, or if that comes from the perspective of starting a business and knowing people with businesses. And if they spend every second of their day building something and watching someone tear it down would be awful. I don't know if that's just that perspective. And a lot of people come from a situation where they were raised in a household where their parents always told them to take what they can get, and they've never been taught to start a business. So therefore they see themselves as a victim, and the big man can afford to give away some of that. Maybe that's their perspective, but I don't have that perspective. So I don't know. I cannot relate directly to why they would do something like that.
So is your main problem with this whole thing is the businesses that are being affected?
My main problem is anybody's livelihood getting torn away
But
after they worked for it.
But do you feel like the people who are protesting and looting and rioting feel like their livelihood is being taken away and that's why they're doing it?
No, not everybody, because that's generalizing.
Of course, not everybody, but the masses, that's why they're doing that, right?
I think that's generalizing. I think a majority of them are looking for some shit to do because they're all 16-year-old boys that are looking to kick some shit in. And
I feel like that's generalizing.
Yeah, but that's where most of the looting's starting. There's a full...
Not necessarily.
And yeah,
Have you?
about?
Maybe
And
what
what
we
about
should
agent
do.
provocateurs? Hired people that put on masks to burn the buildings down, and then they blame it on Black Lives Matter. And really, it was just some Fed, probably. You know, there's a video of these two black ladies walking up, showing a white woman burning down a fast food restaurant, and the black ladies are saying, "What are you doing? Stop!" And the white lady's response was, "I'm doing this for you." When those ladies were just walking for the protest. Like that kind of stuff is so crooked to me.
Yeah. But again, that's generalizing. That's one situation that you see.
But Okay, but I'm basing it off that one.
Sure,
Is that
of
not
course. But we all
crooked?
generalize, as you can see, whenever we're trying to discuss things, we talk about the generalization of it. And I think if we want to really go down this rabbit hole in this conversation, it would be helpful to have somebody who maybe is a protester or somebody who does do the riots and get their perspective.
Let's reach out to Antifa, see if they'll come in. I don't want them to know where we live.
But maybe if we should go into this a little deeper with a different perspective of somebody else, and then we can listen and hear what they're saying. But I do like the conversation. I think this is a good, and I definitely, if you're asking my perspective on the music video, I don't think it's racist, but we need to have somebody else's perspective because you and I are both two white people having this conversation.
We should get a racist, and a country music star, and then someone from the riots.
Yeah,
all
why not?
Together.
Why not? I think
that
it
would
be
go
great.
over great. That'd be a great round table talk. That would. We're doing that somewhere else.
Maybe we don't do that at wherever this podcast is. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Well, that's great. I'm glad we had that conversation.
I know. But this is where like you and I can be a little different, and I don't know if it's that I want to see all perspectives. I want to understand. I want to collect the data from everybody so that I can really, I have my opinion, but I want to make sure that I'm hearing other people. And I think that's really an issue today is we all just hunker down and bury our feet in the sand and we say, I'm right. But we're not actually listening to what other people are saying.
Because you're empathetic and you always feel for the victim. Immediately if something happens, you're like, well, why did they get in that situation? What were they trying to do? Or even the bad guy, if something does something wrong, your first thought is, well, what led them to do that? Obviously something was wrong.
Right. But why not? Why aren't we having those conversations? I don't believe that. I mean, sure, there's good and evil and whatever you want to say, but I think a lot of it is a product of our upbringing and what we're taught and the pass down of ancestral trauma. I think there's a lot more that goes into it. And so to slap a sticker on something and to say you're this and labeling and judging and, breaking people down, we're not really getting to the root of it. Same thing like with big pharma. You're slapping a medication on something, but you're not actually fixing the root problem. So that's a whole nother conversation.
So my question for you, when you talk about generations of issues, and if let's just say there is good and evil, and someone has, this freight train of evil that they're just on this path and they keep doing bad things, your thought is clearly, it's a pattern and they have something going on. How do you stop that pattern?
Plant medicine.
You don't get them out of the face of the earth.
Would I kill them?
If somebody raped a bunch of little kids and has murdered a couple people, you would just give them some mushrooms and hope that they change their mind?
No, it would have to be a much more of an unraveling of traumas behind that. And do you forgive them? I mean, there's
no forgiveness if it was that bad.
Yeah, of course it's not that bad, but there are situations where people can come back.
How do you stop that pattern of evil if it is happening like that? Because plant medicine isn't just going to fix something. And if there is a justice system and there's family members of something bad that happened, like their little kids with this terrible person, what do you do to that terrible person? Mm-hmm. How do you, obviously, we can go down rabbit holes because prison is all messed up in so many ways because there's no rehabilitation. But if someone is that bad, like horrific things he's done, what's the answer?
Again, that's generalizing. So we'd have to know
I'm not
more.
generalizing. I'm talking about this one man who did these horrific things to little kids.
You and I have had this conversation before. Like, we obviously have nieces and nephews, and if something happened, our first thought is, I would go to prison to make sure that person is wiped off the face of the earth.
All right, that's the answer. Good. I would put him under the railroad tracks.
However, you hear about these really amazing stories too, where like drunk drivers have killed 16-year-old girls.
That's an amazing story.
I know. Wait, hold on, I'm not done. Where people
don't lead it like that.
But where the families have forgiven them, they've forgiven them, and it becomes such like a heavier, heartfelt story and a feeling than punishing them. Like, I'm going to do evil to you because you did evil to me. You created pain to me, so I'm going to destroy you. That's kind of the problem with the world right now. Now,
You're talking about drunk drivers. I'm talking about a rapist.
I'm giving that as an example, but a rapist too.
I'm still trying to get you to answer the rapist question.
What's the rapist question?
What do you do with someone like that?
What do we do with a rapist?
That's done those terrible things to multiple kids.
Well, you got to sit them down and be like, tell me about your childhood. Where you obviously they're going to be reprimanded. They're going to be held accountable for their actions.
See, that's a better answer off the bat. Because before it's like we could sit them down and give them some mushrooms and talk to them about their past.
It's got to be more than that. I think obviously you put them in a situation, you exclude them from stuff, you let them really sit with it, you let them go into the internal system where they're like learning about themselves, they're doing self-discovery. You get some talk therapy, you understand. But however, there are people who may not have the right brain capacity.
That's what
There
I was
might be some mental health problems, and then you have to go deeper into that. You just need to have, we need to create resources to help people instead of like shunning them and sticking them away. Because there are situations where like somebody's like, say for a terrorist, for instance, they've blown something up. Well, that's somebody's son or husband or dad. And it creates anger within that family group. And now you're just feeding the bear. You're just like, you're erupting. And then that person may be the next terrorist leader. I mean, you just don't know.
That sentence didn't make sense at all to me.
Okay.
You're saying we go kill a terrorist and now that family wants retaliation. Okay.
Yeah. So now that terrorist is like, well, screw America. They killed my dad.
That's
so
exactly
now that you create a new terrorist leader.
That's how Al Qaeda and ISIS and every time we go in and do a regime change war, the new leader comes in. It's always a cycle.
So what we're doing right now is not working. What we're doing isn't working. And I think we can both agree, whether it's riots and looting or our system, and something's not working. And so how do you change it? How do you fix it? Obviously not, plant medicine's not going to be the sticker that's going to fix everything. But if you could get somebody talk therapy and then you have them do the internal examination and then you have them do some plant medicine and you have them like, there are tools that we could be utilizing, but we're not, because it doesn't make money. The system wants to make moolah.
That's why when you say plant medicine, that's not ever going to happen.
It might.
They'll do it in private studies and private organizations. But when we allow the government to run these things and we think the government's looking out for our best interest, you cannot patent a plant. Therefore, plant medicine will never be universal and never be resourced to the people.
What's your next question?
All right. Well, that was good. Glad we covered that.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about body positivity. Do you think society is pushing an agenda that being out of shape and fat is okay because everything is consumed on an artificial and terrible for you level?
Is society pushing that?
Grocery stores, everything you see, it's easier, it's cheaper, just grab and go.
Okay, so the question isn't, is fat healthy? The question is society pushing junk food to make us unhealthy?
And then therefore they're saying it's okay, you can look like this.
Yes, I do think that.
Okay, why?
I think that, oh God, this goes into so, you're taking me down rabbit holes today, Mr. Baca. Okay. I think this podcast is never going to get heard. They're going to shut us down immediately. But I believe that...
We get like 30 views. We're definitely going to get played.
Watch this one go viral. I believe that it's a big picture situation happening. I think they poison people with food. They get you stuck on pharmaceutical drugs. They want you to be unhealthy because that lines the pockets. I think that I don't know why I feel like this, but I've always felt like there's a cure for cancer, or cancer is a bigger situation, but there's so much money behind what happens with cancer. There's so much money behind heart disease and heart failure and heart attacks and all that stuff. There's so much behind all of it. And I think a lot of it stems from food and environment. I don't think our water is clean. I don't think our food is healthy. I don't think our soil is healthy. I don't think the animals that we eat are healthy. I don't think the vegetables that we grow and consume are healthy. It's all processed and full of crap. And so by keeping Americans unhealthy allows everybody to be part of the system and in the hospitals and on medicine, which lines the pockets. So I know we all think this industrial thing is where a lot of the money is coming from, but I think our medical field is where a lot of the money comes from in the United States. So,
Pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're not fixing the root. Again, it goes into just, you're masking the side effects.
Yeah, I sent you that great
The
video.
causes. It was awesome.
Yeah, about you get a headache, you take an aspirin. You didn't have a headache because of lack of aspirin. You know, we're just putting something over the light that turns on to tell us there's a problem. And the best comparison was your oil light comes on. You don't unplug the oil light to make it go away. You actually go change the oil. You know, you fill it up. We don't do the same with our body. When an engine light comes on, we just unplug the engine light in our brain. We don't actually go find what the issue is.
Yeah. I think, and again, that's generalizing, but I think there are some really great physicians and doctors and medical
for sure
experts that don't do that. But I think the masses do that. And I was actually talking to a medical friend, and I think the reason why they do that is now the way the system is set up, doctors don't get a lot of time with their patients. And in order to avoid lawsuits and legal issues, they have to do something. Like they get 30 minutes with you. Whereas if they could sit down with you for maybe 2 hours and really run tests and figure out what was going on, it'd be a different conversation. But
Well, you
now
can
these
do that.
hospitals have to maintain their bills and their expenses. And so they have to burn and turn.
You don't have to. You
They
just
don't
decide
have
to get a
to.
job with a corporation instead of do private medicine.
Yeah, but private medicine, I mean, what does that look like? I'm sure they run up against all kinds of red tape in private medicine too. So,
but you got to be willing to fight that red tape. I mean, how
Right.
many people are just going to lay down and get a job for a corporate company just because it's just easier? It's like that's America.
well, think about all these doctors. They're going into their careers with thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. They have to start a business when you're already in debt. Good luck. So, I mean, I understand. So to go back to the original question, yeah, I do think that, I mean, do I think fat is unhealthy? I don't know. I'd have to look at the blood work and stuff, because you could look at us and think a certain thing, and our numbers versus somebody else's numbers could be completely different, and they may be considered healthy compared to us. But I don't know. I don't know if we should be shaming people for being overweight and
Why not?
fat, because I think that there's a mental component with weight gain that we aren't addressing as a society.
But don't you think that's the best way to do it, is to push someone to get back in better shape? Because if you are in optimal shape, you will feel better. You'll stop stressing your body. How many people do we know that say we have knee problems, but they're also 200 pounds overweight? It's like,
Right.
well, the reason why your knees hurt is because you're a little big. And if you take that stress off your body, those little issues will go away.
But for people that are fragile and hanging on by a thread, if you go in with an aggressive approach, you could break them in a way that's not healthy, break them in a way that maybe they take their own life. So you personally act really well with like the David Goggins approach. You like that aggressive, get your fat ass out there and get to work, get off the couch, you lazy piece of shit. Not everybody will receive it the way that you do.
sure.
So I don't necessarily agree that shaming is the right approach. I think, again, having the space for people to really process and understand what's happening, if they even want to. A lot of people don't want to.
Yeah.
You can't fix people if they don't think they need to be fixed, or they don't
Correct.
want to be fixed. And I think the addiction in yummy, greasy, sugary food is much stronger than the mental aspect. I mean, I gave up alcohol easy. I haven't had alcohol in over 200 days. I tried to give up sugar for 30 days. Talk about addiction. Sugar is highly addictive. And to say to somebody, you have a problem, you have to go into an addiction situation.
Yeah.
And there's sugar and everything in the middle aisles at a grocery store.
Yep.
So I think it's a much bigger conversation to say fat is unhealthy. I think there's just a lot of things. What do you think?
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I definitely don't think having a giant body composition rate is good for you, because like I went down the rabbit hole just talking about the knees. Like, putting a bunch of extra stress on your body is unrealistic when it comes to the actual like physical capability of your body. You push yourself, stress it out when it comes to working out, so you know that things can be easier on your everyday life. That's why we work out, because you push yourself to the limits knowing that everything else is easy. Don't make the rest of your day hard because you can't push yourself to the limits. If some shit hit the fan, I think we can get out of it. There's a lot of people in this world that would trip and fall if they were chased by a zombie. They're dead. But we're going to make it. Can I go pee?
No, wait, I want to ask you one
I
more
gotta
thing.
pee real bad.
Okay, go pee real bad.
What do you want to ask me?
No, go ahead.
But yeah,
Wait, hold on. There was something I was going to ask you about.
because the problem is,
Oh, there's so many problems.
yeah,
Yeah.
people take offense to a healthy person ad or a skinny Barbie doll. What's the issue behind a skinny Barbie doll? They want fat Barbie dolls that make you feel more realistic.
It's interesting if you think about the way society has pushed skinniness and magazines and
Let me say this real quick.
Okay.
Skinny doesn't mean healthy.
right.
People can't climb up a couple flight of stairs. That's an issue
For who?
for them.
Yeah, but who cares? It's their life. Why do we care? Maybe that's the question, is why do we care so much what other people do? Why do we care?
I agree.
Why do we care? If you want to be fat, if you want to be skinny, if you can't climb upstairs, if you can run a triathlon, why do we care what other people are doing?
I 100% agree, but don't let that person who decided to be just a slob dictate the way the world runs after that. You can't have 2 airplane seats.
But see,
because
that's what
you
you're
decided
doing.
to get to 400 pounds.
But that's what you're doing. You're dictating.
I'm not dictating anything. If the airlines have these seats for people and then a big person comes in and goes, you have to make a bigger one for me now because I decided to eat my life away. How is that the airline's fault? I know the airplane seats are already too small. I get it. But either way, why would we roll over for someone like that?
Yeah, I agree. And I also feel like we're all still trying to tell each other what to do.
Should we make a fat person airplane?
Maybe start it.
Okay.
But what, that's going to be more expensive because how are you going to cover the fuel on less seats?
That's true.
And then people are going to be upset that they're having to pay more because they're taking a,
So
you
what
can't
you just
make
came up.
everybody happy.
All right, Steph, you're going to get canceled because you just came up with a business plan that charges people per weight. So if you weigh more, you have to pay more. You just said start it, but you're going to have to charge more. So you're saying way more, pay more airlines.
Oh my God, you are saying that. I don't believe those words came out of my mouth.
I mean, it was your instructions. I just turned it into a business
But that
idea.
was the whole issue, right? With the person who was on the plane.
It happens all the time.
That they were upset that they had to pay. So I don't know. You're not going to win. You just can't win. And what's happening is we're trying to be so sensitive to every single person. And at the end of the day, you can't make everybody happy.
Thank you.
You can't tell everybody what to do because we're all only living our lives against our own perspective.
Mm-hmm. So I agree with everything you're saying where we oversensitize and we try to mold to fit everybody's needs. When in reality, if there is a system in place and it's an airline and we have no choice but to use that airline, we kind of have to go with whatever the fuck it is because we didn't start an airplane company that we could fly somewhere. If you're a big girl or a big boy, I'm sorry that you can't fit in the seats, but you got to buy two. Like, I don't get first class.
Maybe that goes back to your original comment of people needing to start their own business. I think if people understood what it actually took to start and run a business, they would have more understanding for the businesses. And if you're using the airlines as an example, if people understood the logistics behind it, it's going to cost us money and we can't afford to do X, Y, and Z to cater to you. Maybe if a 700-pound person was the CEO of they would understand. Yeah. They'd be like, okay, I get it. Or like if the looting and rioting, if you're talking about a perspective from a business owner, if you owned and operated and started your own business from the ground up and it took you your entire life's earning and your family and your sacrifice to start this small business, sure, maybe you would understand why it's that video from Jason Aldean came out because you understand what it takes to start that.
Yep.
So it's just all understanding each other's perspectives, taking a day and walking in somebody's shoes. If you were 700 pounds and you wanted to be understood as to why you're that weight, maybe we took a second and really observed that person. I think that we're lacking empathy and we're lacking understanding. We just want to point fingers and be like, it's you, it's me. Again, the divide, it goes back to this huge, big picture of we're just trying to be divided.
Yeah.
Fat versus thin, good versus evil, racist versus bigot. I mean, there's so many things. It's just constantly.
That last one was
I don't know.
Same-sided.
Racist. Oh, right. Racist versus.
How about just conservative versus liberal?
All of it. It's just so. And if people could just take a second and, I'm not saying be ignorant and block it out because that's just not going to happen. People want to fight for something they believe in. We all do. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm trying to advocate for whales right now.
Stop watching the news.
Yeah. But is that it?
Here's the great quote.
Is that the solution?
A great quote. Probably not, because the great quote that will be on both sides is, if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch the news, you're uninformed.
Right. So what are you going to do? What do you do? Live under a rock? No. People will say that that's ignorant and irresponsible. But then you look at, not the Mormons. You look at the Masonites and what's the group?
Amish.
You look at the Amish. They're fine.
Yeah, a study just came out and there's zero cancer or any of those diseases in any of that community for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Someone just went out there and did this whole study and talked to all of them, and no one is vaccinated.
Do you feel like the system is broken? Is that the common denominator in the whole thing? And if it is, if the answer
government's
is
too big, and the system is controlled by the same group of people on every level. Blackstone, Vanguard, BlackRock. It's like we were looking at somebody close to you, their stocks, and it's like they're in BlackRock, Vanguard, and all that, and they go, yeah, but I also have Pfizer, and name 4 other companies. You go to Yahoo Finance, you look up the number one shareholders in every one of those other companies, including Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, and BlackRock is the number one shareholder. So it's the same company, it's the same people, it's a big club, and we're not in it.
So is that the issue that we feel left out?
That's it. Let us in.
We just want to be a part of the group.
Why aren't we in the club?
Man, and now aliens. Do you think that
Sometimes.
Do you, if it's based on culture and like movies and shows, and when you start going into who owns these big conglomerate corporations like CMT and Disney and those who also run our entertainment side and the culture side, are they and have they always been tied in politically? Is that why it's connected?
What do you mean tied in politically?
So you look at Disney, right? And now they're in this whole woke thing, and you look at CMT and now they're shutting down Jason Aldean. Well, who are their investors?
ESG.
Okay. So
ESG is a score that you get on a global platform, whether you use gay, transgender, women. Like there's a score now for, that's why Bud Light got in trouble, because they were trying to up their ESG score to make them fit on a platform of acceptance.
is this true though, or is this conspiracy?
No,
Even
true.
though conspiracies, I feel like
No,
are
it's
usually true.
No, that's kind of what it is. That's why a lot of companies like Yingling are trying to take over as the American brand, because Bud Light messed up. The culture and political somehow got aligned because you want to be culturally accepted in this new movement of wokeism, and then you'll reelect people who are on that same side. Maybe I don't know how deep the rabbit goes, but yes, Disney and all those are connected.
And I think that the marketing plans have shifted too with social media, whereas before it was mainly just on television and newspapers and handouts and phone calls. Now everyone's on their phones through social media. And so in order to be politically strong, you almost have to be on the social platforms. And I think that can help or hurt politicians. And now you're creating this whole, now the politics are intertwining with the social platforms, and they're intertwining with the culture. It's it's very overwhelming, and I don't know what we would do to actually fix it, which is why I think a lot of people turn to looting and rioting and picketing in the streets. And I think
You say that, but they're only out there because they saw it on social.
but as you see, culture and politics have shifted. Human rights have also shifted. The way people approach things, our world is shifting. And in doing so, everything has to shift. So we can't say a peaceful protest is going to work nowadays. That's why people do that. So
They call it mostly peaceful protests. That's that way they could still burn stuff down, but most of it was peaceful.
yeah, maybe. But I think I don't know. I don't know the answers. And this is why it just gets overwhelming.
That's why it's
and
a good conversation.
I try to spend my time focusing on how I can be the best version of myself and to be a good person in the world and to bring happiness and love and peace and to meditate and to work on my own shit. I want to work on my own stuff so I'm not out there projecting all of my crap onto other people. Why are you smiling?
Because we just went full circle
I
to
know.
my first answer throughout the whole podcast.
But I'm also not somebody who's out there raping and pillaging.
I hope not.
But so
I don't know what
that
you
was
do
your
when you
question.
Go to the grocery store.
Not saying that my evilisms are any better. You know, here are we going to start ranking
I think
how
they're
bad
little-
evil is?
I would say not that bad.
But you just don't know. You
I
don't
literally
know what the cause
I
and effects
literally
are.
know that you're not out there doing those things.
I know. But who's to say what I do as the things that I think are good or the things that I'm doing that somebody could view as bad? Having a cell phone. Some countries may think this is so horrible because what it takes to get this in my hands.
Cobalt mining, and you're a terrible person
Yeah.
for buying from slaves.
Exactly. And so
not
some
from
people
slaves.
may say this is evil, this is bad. And we could say, well, raping and pillaging is bad. Who's to say this is worse or better? So again,
Yep.
off my little soapbox again.
Arr.
Arg.
Raping and pillaging. Like straight pirates.
I know.
All right. So
All right, questions for you.
you got somewhere to be?
No. If you were in a clown car with any 3 celebrities, who would it be and why? Go.
Let's see. But honestly, I would say like funny people. So like Theo Vaughn would be a great clown car participant. Bobby Lee. Bert Kreischer would be a little too much, I feel like. And he'd take up most of the space. So
That would be hilarious. Okay, so why those 3?
because they're just clowns and they'd be the best time ever. And I'd be laughing hysterically. We'd probably just be shooting the shit the whole time, even though 2 of them are technically sober because they both were addicts. So they bring the fun mentality, I guess. I don't know. They're just clowns. They are goofballs. They're a good time. And I would probably enjoy that very much.
Okay, that's question 1 of 10. I've got 9 more for you.
Well,
And you guys gotta be
back to you.
quick.
Go.
No, these are my questions for you. You just have to be quick on them. If you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be and why?
I would be a cucumber. And I would sit on your nightstand.
Okay, what's the most ridiculous thing you've seen someone do in public? First thoughts. You just got to go. Don't think. Just say it. Whatever.
Pooped. Use birthday card to wipe.
Poop is always funny. If you could only communicate through animal noises for a day, how would you navigate the world?
How would I navigate the world? What does that even mean?
If you could only communicate through
How would
animal
I
noises,
get around?
how would you navigate the world? Yeah. Only using animal noises.
I would be an ape.
So you want the curtain to give you a blowjob. You'd stick your armpits and eat your hair. All right, got it.
That's my animal noise.
If you were a fictional character, who would you be and how would you handle their challenges with humor?
I'd be Batman.
And how would you handle their challenges with humor?
Oh, where is she? Just everywhere I go, confused. My parents are dead. I don't know.
My God, you have dark humor.
Yeah, that's why I'm the Dark Knight.
Where is she and my parents are dead? Okay. All right, next. What's the funniest prank you've ever pulled on someone?
I've got a few, but I think some of my favorites are changing people's autocorrects on their iPhones. People don't know there's shortcuts, and I can think of two people off the top of my head. One, your bestie Christine. Whenever she wrote haha, it would change on a text to I love cock, and she sent it to her pastor. And then Bobby's are really good. My brother-in-law.
Wait, let's not run over that. She said ha ha in a text with her pastor, and it popped up on the screen. I love cock.
I just remember a text saying, "What did David do to my phone? I just told my pastor I love cock."
That's terrible.
And another good one though is Bobby and his sweet mother Irma. He would try to write back to her, and he sent me the screenshot, and it was "I love cock!" all exclamation point. And I think her response was like, "That's nice, mijo." And he goes, No. What I'm trying to say is I love cock. And he sent it again. And then he texted me like, "I hate you so much." So that's a good prank.
Those would be the two worst people to ever receive that. Your pastor and your mother, like, just.
But
dead.
her response was like, "Okay, honey." Like it was just a,
Okay, mijo.
"I love you too."
Okay. If you could be a professional in any absurd occupation, like a professional mattress tester, what would it be?
Professional fleshlight tester.
God, could you imagine?
No, we got to work on this one. It's a little dry.
Could you imagine what the first fleshlight must have been like? Like, what if it wasn't soft rubber
Let's
and you
be
were
honest.
the one and it like scraped and destroyed your wiener?
Did you say Diener?
I was gonna say dick and wiener.
Let's be honest. People have to test those out.
Right?
It's ready for human trials.
I mean, you can't test them on animals. What would you do? You test it on a horse?
No, I'm assuming
first?
they just use like a dildo, and then they probably go, "All right, who wants to take this home tonight?"
It would be you. That would be your profession. Would it just be?
I got it, boss.
Would
You got like a chart of which ones were good and bad.
Would it just be fleshlights, or would it be like sex toys in general?
No, they're like, "You're gonna take this butt plug with you home tonight." I'm like, "That thing's huge. I'm not taking that."
You're like, what do you mean? It's in right now.
Yeah. Oh, you mean this one?
Okay. How would you survive a zombie apocalypse using only your sense of humor?
I think when they're coming at me, I'd be like, and then they'd be confused, like, "Oh, he's a zombie too." And then I'd, and then tap them on the other shoulder, so they go, and then I'd just keep walking with them. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Like,
That's pretty good.
I got a better one.
Okay.
When the zombies coming at you, you pants them because they're just,
How do you know
then-
zombies wearing pants?
It's true. They could be perverts. I don't know.
Maybe zombies don't need pants. Maybe they're like Barbies and they don't have
That's right.
the packages. All right, my last question for you. How would you win a battle of puns against the world's greatest pun master?
I guess I would just have to be pun-stoppable.
You're an idiot.
I know it's cheesy, but I feel great.
It ain't easy being cheesy. Good job. Bravo.
That was a grating cheese joke at the end there.
What did you say? I missed it.
I know it's cheesy, but I feel great.
Pun master. They have to step up their game if they're going to be.
You know how the Scarecrow got that award, right?
How?
He was outstanding in his field.
Oh, that's good. Didn't Jackson tell us that?
I don't think so.
Wasn't he saying the Scarecrow? I don't remember. Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you
All
know
right.
that? Did you hear about the 5 ants that moved in with the other 5 ants? They became tenants. 10 ants.
Are you just looking these up, or you're winging these off your head right now?
I'm winging them off my head.
All right, let's wrap this up.
All right.
That was good.
Put a condom on this podcast.
We talked about some cultural and political stuff, and also we had some fun at the end.
That's right.
What are we going to talk about next week?
Tune in next week for an all-new episode of We'll Figure It Out the Day of...
Did you say tuna? Tuna, next week.
Big Eye. Let's go.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate your support, listening. Let us know what you want to hear next.
Let us catch you latest on the Man J.
Okay, Cheshire, bye.